My name's David Crystal, and I'm the author of Just a Phrase I'm Going Through, My Life in Language. And it has been a life in language. I spend a lot of time going around literary festivals and talking to schools and things like this. And afterwards there's always a question time. And the questions are sometimes really rather weird. I remember once, for example, at a sixth form college, a lad asks me a question afterwards. Does linguistics get you the girls, he asks me. And then another one says, how did you get your beard? And then rather more sensibly, people ask questions about, how is it that you became a linguist? Why did you become a linguist? How does one become a linguist? What do you do when you become a linguist? And that's where the idea for this book came from, to tell that sort of story. It all started for me, of course, in a bilingual environment. That's one of the reasons why you become a linguist, I think. You face these two languages very early on in life. And then I switched to Liverpool very early on and found a very different language situation there, different dialects forcing themselves onto me, becoming a Scouser. And then, of course, into university and beyond, various other language experiences there. And what does one do when one becomes a linguist? Well, in my case, all sorts of projects, fascinating projects over the years. Spent a lot of time working with children's language, for instance, and working on the way in which children are unable to learn their language. Kids with language handicaps, adults with language disabilities, fascinating area. And then at another time, facing up to the crisis that half the languages of the world are dying at the moment, endangered languages all over the place. What does one do with those? And then another completely different world, or perhaps phase of life, working with Shakespeare's Globe on Shakespeare in original pronunciation. How does that work? What's the sound of it like? What's the effect of that when you're on stage? And then, perhaps most recently of all, the world of the internet, the amazing world, everything from emails to texting, and what are the language implications there? And then in between, of course, for something like 22 years, editing a general encyclopedia. That always brings up questions. How do you edit an encyclopedia? How do you write an encyclopedia? Well, this book tells you, at least how I managed to do it. Now, is there a life in vocabulary and grammar and orthography and pronunciation? When you say that, people say that must be awfully boring. Well, I suppose it could be if you didn't actually go to different parts of the world where people are interested in those questions and where the interest turns itself into some extraordinary situations. I've been all over the place, and I always end up in a country where something exciting is happening. There's a revolution going on. There's trouble. I get into all kinds of trouble. If you're interested in grammar and vocabulary, that's one thing. Are you interested in threats of assassination, threats of kidnapping, espionage, violence, sex? It's all in Just a Phrase I'm Going Through, let me tell you. It's a language memoir, I suppose. My Life in Language is the subtitle. It's not a personal account of everything in my life. It doesn't tell you whether I like broccoli or not and things of that kind. It's only those aspects of my life which bear on the subject of language. But it's brought some surprises. If it hadn't been for linguistics, I would never have found my father, for instance. Now that's a cliffhanger. How did that happen? And then, although it's basically about language, I do have to remember my sixth form questioners. So you will learn in this book whether linguistics gets you the girls, and you will learn where my beard came from.